Hello and welcome to another Flask tutorial. In the last part, we had discussed about waveforms. In this part, we have to discuss about databases. Flask does not support databases natively. This is one of the areas where Flask lacks, but that is great because we have the freedom to choose the database that best fits our application instead of being forced to adapt only one. There are great choices for databases in Python. Many of them even come with Flask extensions that make a better integration with the application. The databases can be separated into two big groups, one that follows the relational model and the other one that does not follow it. The latter one is also called NoSQL database. That means they do not follow the relational query language SQL. While there are great database products in both groups, we'll be using relational databases for this application that we are building. In the last part, we had installed a Flask extension called Flask WTF, as you can see here. In this part also, we are going to install two more extensions. The first one is called Flask SQL Alchemy. It is an extension that provides Flask a friendly wrapper to the popular SQL Alchemy package, which is nothing but a object relational mapper or ORM. So what is ORM? ORM allows applications to manage a database using high-level entities such as classes, objects, and methods instead of tables and SQL. So the job of ORM is to translate the high-level operations into database commands. The nice thing about SQL Alchemy is that it is an ORM not only for one but for many relational databases. It supports a long list of database engines including MySQL, PostgreSQL, and SQLite. This is extremely powerful because we can do our development using a simple database like SQLite, and while deployment we can choose some more robust MySQL or PostgreSQL database without having to change our application. So let us install our first package or the first extension, that is called Flask SQL Alchemy. First of all, we need to activate our virtual environment. So for that, I am going to write pip env shell. After that, we can write pip env install Flask SQL Alchemy, and it will install the Flask SQL Alchemy extension. While it is being installed, let us talk about database migrations. Most of the database tutorials do not address this problem of making updates to an existing database as the application needs to grow or change. This is hard because relational databases are centered around structured data. So when the structure changes, the data already in the database needs to be migrated to the new structure. So the second extension that we are going to install is called Flask Migrate. This extension is a Flask wrapper for Alembic. Alembic is a database migration framework for SQL Alchemy. Working with database migrations adds a bit of work to get the database started, but that is a small price to pay for a robust way to make changes to your database in the future. So the installation process will be similar to the Flask SQL Alchemy. We will write pip env install Flask migrate. It will install the Flask migrate extension in our project, and after it is installed, we will be ready to configure our database in our application. As we discussed, with the help of Flask SQL Alchemy, we can use a simple database in our development purpose, and while deployment, we can choose any robust one. So for this project, we are going to use SQLite database. SQLite databases are the most convenient choice for developing small applications, sometimes even not so small ones, but each database is stored in a single file on disk, and there is no need to run a database server like MySQL or PostgreSQL. So first of all, we need to add two new configurations to our config file, which is right here. So here we have to add two new lines called SQL Alchemy database URI. Database URI is equal to os.environment.get, and here we can write okay, here we can write database URL, or or let me zoom out a bit, yeah, or here we can write something SQLite, or here we can write SQLite / plus os.path.join base directory to blog.db. Cool. So we can do this, yeah, and then we can add another line called okay, SQL alchemy track modifications is equal to false. Cool. Also, we need to define the base directory over here, so we can write base directory is equal to os.path.join dot absolute path of os.path.directory name file. Cool. So now we are done with the configuration. The Flask SQL Alchemy extensions takes the location of the application's database from this SQL Alchemy database URI configuration variable. In this case, we are taking a database URL from this environment variable database URL, or if it is not found, so we are using this blog.db database that we have created, or it will be created automatically. We have also set SQL Alchemy track modifications to false to disable a feature of SQL Alchemy that we do not need to send a signal to the application every time a change is about to be made in the database. The database is going to be represented in the application by database instance. The database migration engine will also have an instance. These are the objects that needs to be created after the application in this init.py file. So here it is. Here after this app.config from object config, we have to write db is equal to SQL Alchemy, and here we have to pass our app instance. Also we have to create the instance of migrate so migrate is equal to migrate app and db. So let us import these libraries. So from Flask SQL Alchemy import SQL Alchemy. Cool. And from Flask migrate cool. So now we have imported these two, and here we have a typo. It is migrate, and let's format this code a bit. Now we have made three changes to the init file. First, we have added a db object that represents the database instance. Then we have added another object that represents the migration engine. Hopefully you see a pattern in how we work with Flask extensions. Most extensions are initialized as these two. Finally, we are importing a new module called models at the bottom. So here, instead of this thing here, we have to write from app import routes and models. This module will define the structure of the database. So we have not yet created it, but we are going to create it now. The data that will be stored in the database will be represented by a collection of classes usually called database models. The ORM layer within the SQL Alchemy will do the translations required to map objects created from these classes into rows in the proper database tables. Let's start by creating a model that represents user. So I have created a table diagram. So you can see here. So it is a users table. It has four fields: ID, username, email, and password. The ID field is usually in all models and it is used as a primary key. Each user in the database will be assigned a unique ID value stored in this field. Primary keys are in most cases automatically assigned by the database, so we just need to provide the ID field marked as primary key. The username, email and password fields are defined as strings or varchar in database jargon, and their maximum lengths are specified so that the database can optimize space usage. While the username and email fields are self-explanatory, the password field deserves some attention. We want to make sure that the application we are building adopts security best practices, and for that reason we will not be storing users' passwords in the database. The problem with storing raw passwords is that if the database ever becomes compromised, the attackers will have access to our passwords, and that could be devastating for the users, right? Instead of writing the passwords directly, we are going to write password hashes, which greatly improves security. This is going to be the topic of another video, so don't worry about it too much. So now we know that we have to create a users table. We can translate this table into our code in the models.py file. So let us first create the models.py file right here in the app directory, models.py. First of all, here we have to import from app import db, the db instance that we created here, this thing. Now here we have to create a class called class user, and it will extend the db.model class. After that we can create our four fields here. ID is equal to db.column. It will be an integer field as shown in the diagram. It is an integer field and it will be primary key, so primary key is equal to true. Now the next field is username, which will be a string field, so db.column db.string, and the maximum length we have taken here is 64, so we are going to use 64 here. I'll do index is equal to true and unique is equal to true. Same goes for email field, and I'm going to change this slightly. Email is equal to, and this length I'll change from 64 to 120. And the next field is password, and password will be db.column. It will also be a string field, so db.string, and the length will be 128. Now the user class has been created. The fields are created as instances of the db.column class, which takes the field type as an argument, that is this thing, plus the other optional arguments. For example, this primary key is equal to true, or index is equal to true, unique is equal to true. The fields that are indexed and unique, these help us in database searches. These fields, index is equal to true and unique is equal to true, makes the database searches efficient. We are going to define a method called repr, that is represent self, and here we just return the username of the user, so we can return a formatted string, return self dot username. So what it will do is, whenever we print our object of the user class, it will not print the object, but it will print the username of that user. So cool. Now we are done with the database model. The next thing we have to do is the database migration. The model class created in this table. So till now we have created the initial database structure or the schema for the application. But as the application continues to grow, it is likely that we will need to make changes to this structure, such as adding new things or sometimes modifying or removing fields. Alembic, a migration framework used by Flask Migrate, will make these schema changes in a way that does not require database to be recreated from scratch every time a change needs to be made. To accomplish this seemingly difficult task, Alembic maintains a migration repository, which is a directory in which it stores its migration scripts. Each time a change is made to the database schema, a migration script is added to the repository with the details of the change. To apply these migrations to the database, these migration scripts are executed in the sequence they were created. Flask migrate exposes its command through the flask command. We have already seen flask run, right, which is a subcommand native to Flask. The Flask DB subcommand is added by Flask migrate to manage everything related to database migrations. So let's create the database migration repository by running the flask db init command, which will initialize our migration repository. And yes, we have seen this, we see this output, and we have this new migrations folder here, and within that let us see this. We can see that there is a versions subdirectory here, and there are some more files here. So after we make any changes, a new file will be added to this versions directory, and we'll see that thing. So with the migration repository in place, it is time to create our first database migration, which will include the users table that maps to the user database table. There are two ways to create a database migration: manually or automatically. To generate a migration automatically, Alembic compares the database schema as defined by the database models against the actual database schema currently used in the database. It then populates the migration script with the necessary changes to make the database schema match the application's model. In this case, since there is no previous database, the automatic migration will add the entire user model to the migration script. So the command to migrate the database is flask db migrate. So let us try running this command here, flask db migrate. And right, when we run this, we see this output, and in this versions folder we can see a new file has been created where it has created a user table with these four fields, and it has set the primary key constraint to id. Also it has created two index, user email and the username. Cool. Now we can also add some message to this migrate command. So for this, let us delete this versions folder in let us delete this file first and migrate this user table again. So flask db migrate, and we just have to pass minus or dash m and this message. So add user table, add user table. So to migrate the database with some message, we can simply run this command, flask db migrate dash m add user table, and here it will migrate the changes, right? So it has created the new file with the same things as we discussed, and simply it has added the message. If you see, it has added the message add user table right here. As we can see, it has two methods, the upgrade method and the downgrade method. The upgrade method the upgrade function applies the migration, and the downgrade method removes it. This allows Alembic to migrate the database to any point in the history, even to older versions, by using the downgrade path. The Flask DB migrate command does not make any changes to the database. It just generates the migration script. To apply these changes to the database, we have another command called Flask DB upgrade. So let us run that command to migrate the changes in our database. So we have to write Flask DB upgrade, and we can see, we can find our DB, yeah, our database right here, block.db. So we cannot view this file in VS Code. So I have another tool or software called Valentina Studio. So it will help me open that file, and let us open that file. So skip this, and if we open database, and our file is stored somewhere here, yeah, so this is our file, and we can see there is Alembic version which has the current version. So if you match this version number with the file's name, you can see this is it, right? So it manages the Alembic version using this table, and we have our table called user here. So it has ID field, username field, email and password. So everything is working perfectly for now. The next thing we are going to discuss in this video is database relationships. Relational databases are good at storing relations between data items. Consider the case of user writing a blog post. The user will have a record in the users table, and the post will have a record in the posts table, right? The most efficient way to record who wrote a given post is to link these two related records, right? So once a link between a user and the post is established, the database can answer queries about this link. The most trivial one is when you have a blog post and you need to know who wrote this blog post. So a very complex query is the reverse of this one. If you have a user, you may want to know all the posts written by this user. Flask SQL Alchemy will help with the both type of queries. Let's expand the database to store blog posts to see relationship in the actions. Here is the schema of this table. So here we have the users table that we have already created. Here we have another table that we are going to create, and in this table we have the same ID field and four more fields called title, body, date created and the user ID. So what all these fields are? So the ID field, as we know, will be the primary key, obviously, which will be unique also. The way to link and the other fields like title will store the title of the blog post, and the body will store the content of the blog post, and the date created field will store the time and date when the blog post was created. We have another thing, user ID. This is the most important one. The user ID field is called a foreign key. The database diagram shows the foreign keys links between the field and the ID field in the users table. This kind of relationship is called one-to-many because one user writes many posts, right? So let us see how can we code this in our models.py file. So here we have to create another class called uh, post post, and it will extend the db.model class, and then we can write id is equal to same, we can copy from here, id is equal to db.column, anything, we can paste it over here. Cool. And the next thing is title, which will be db.column. It will be a string field, db.string, and let us see how much length it was. So 64. Cool. Okay, 64. The next field was the body field that will store the content of the blog post. So db.column, it will also be a string field with the length will be somewhat more, obviously, so it will be 500. Cool. And the date created field will be there, so it will be a db.column, db dot date time index is equal to true, and default will be date time dot utc now. And the next field we are going to create it is user ID. So user ID will be a foreign key. So we have to write db.column db.integer, as it is an ID field, so it will be integer, and it is a foreign key div, so db.foreign key, and it will link to the user.id field. Cool. Now we need to import the date time module from Python. So we can write from date time import date time. So we need to add one more field to the user table, that is the post field. So post field will be db dot relationship. It will be linked to the post table, and the backref is equal to author. So we can add the same this method repr. So we can add here to the end, and here we just need to return self dot title. So let us discuss what we have done till now. If you see, these things are very much clear to you. The new thing is the user ID field. So the user ID field was initialized as a foreign key to user.id, which means that it is a reference to the ID value from the users table. In this reference, the user part is the name of the database table for the model. So it is an unfortunate inconsistency that in some instances, such as db.relationship, as you can see, we use the model class name, right? And while some other places, at some other places, we use the lowercase database model name. So SQL Alchemy automatically uses these lowercase characters, or for multi-word model names, snake is used. The user class has a new post field, right? And it is initialized with db.relationship. This is not an actual database field, but a high level view of the relationship between users and the post table. And for that reason, it is not in the database diagram. For a one-to-many relationship, a db.relationship field is normally defined on the one side and is used in a convenient way to get access to the many. So for example, if we have a user stored in U, the expression u.post will run a query that returns all the posts written by that user. If you can't imagine, I'll simply write it over. So let us suppose there is a user called a U, and when we run this u.posts, it will return all the posts written by that user. The first argument to db.relationship is the model name or the model class. The first argument to the db.relationship is the model class that represents the many side of the relationship. This argument can be provided as a string with the class name if the model is defined later in the module. The backref argument defines the name of the field that will be added to the objects of the many class that points back at the one object. So this will add a post.author expression that will return the user when given a post. The lazy argument defines how the database query for this relationship will be issued, which is something that we'll discuss later. So don't worry if these details don't make such sense yet. We'll see examples of this at the end. So since we have done some changes to the database, we can run the migrations, and remember, we don't need to initialize the database again since we have already done it. So we just simply need to write flask db migrate, and we can add the migrate message, add post table. Cool. And it will create the migration script, right? So here our migration script is here, and now we need to reflect these changes in the database. So we need to write flask db upgrade. After this, the database table will have the database will have a new table called post. And if we just reload this, if we just see this, so we can see there is another table post with id, title, body, date created and user id field. Correct? Now let us play with the database. Let us now uh, so since the application does not have any database logic yet, let's play with the database in the Python interpreter to familiarize. Let us play with the database. Since the application does not have any database logic yet, we can simply do this in the Python interpreter to get familiar with it. So let us fire up our Python interpreter. Let me maximize this thing, and here we can run the interpreter using Python. Cool. And what we need to do is to import the DB instance. So from it's from app import DB. Cool, imported. Now from app.models import user and post. Now we have imported those two classes, user and post, from the models file. Now let us create a new user. So what should we name it? User. Cool. User is equal to user is equal to user and user. And what we need to pass? We need to pass the username. If we simply see this models, so user will have three fields. ID will be generated automatically, so we need to pass the username. So we can give user 1, right? And the email we can pass okay, user1 at the rate anything domain.com. Cool. And the password we need not store right now, we can do this later. And if we press enter, it shows no output, right? So we need to do one more thing to create the object. We need to the changes to the database are done in the context of a database session, which can be accessed as db.session. Multiple changes can be accumulated in a session, and once all the changes have been registered, we can simply issue a single db.session.commit command, which writes all the changes atomically. So let us write db.session.add. We need to add that user, so added. And now we need to write db.session.commit and committed. Cool. Now if at any time while working on a session there is an error, a call to db.session.rollback will abort this session and remove any changes stored in it. The important thing to remember is that changes are only written to the database when a commit is issued. So unless and until you run this db.session.commit command, the database will have no change there. So sessions guarantee that the database will never be left in an inconsistent state. So if we just okay, if we just create another user object, so what should we name it? User only. Let us name it user again. Username is equal to user2, and the email will be obviously user2@domain.com. Cool. And we need to write db.session.add user and db.session.commit. Remember, while issuing this commit command, we need not pass anything. So after this, we have two objects of the user class created. How can we see those objects? So let us do one thing. Users is equal to user class dot query dot all, and if we run this, inside the users variable we have the two objects. So if we just write users, we can see we have the user1 and the user2. So what are these user 1 and user 2? User 1 and user 2 was the username, right? So whatever we are returning from here, it will show up here. So the first query we saw is the query.all. All of the models have a query attribute that is the entry point to run a database query. The most basic query is that one the most basic query is that one that returns all the elements of a class, which is appropriately named as all. Note that ID fields were automatically set to 1 and 2 when those users were added. We can see in this Valentina Studio, and if we see, yeah, so user 1 has an ID field 1 and user 2 has an ID value 2. So let's say we need to get the user with the ID 2. What do we do? Let's see, user or u is equal to user dot query. Obviously query will be there, and then get, and we just need to write the ID, and let's say we need to get the second user, so we have written the ID 2, and when we print this we see that the user 2 is printed. Now let's create a blog post. So if we see, we have a user, right, user 2. So let's create a new post. Post is equal to post, and what we need to pass in the post class, the title will be okay, first post. Cool. The body will be anything. This is my first post, and the date created will be generated automatically, and the next thing we need to pass is author. Author is equal to u. Now where does this author come? So whatever we have defined here, backref is equal to author, that is being used here as we have discussed already. So when we print this, we cannot print this. We need to first run db.session.add post, and then db.session.commit, and now we can run the post command, or we can print the post. So what it has returned? It has returned the title of the post. Now we can see u is equal to user dot query dot get 1. It is user 1. Also, what if we run this command, post is equal to post dot, okay, no, not objects, it is query dot all. So we have total how many posts? Obviously one post only. So this is the first post. Cool. Now let's say we want to get the get all the posts written by a user. So let's say user is equal to user dot query dot get 1. So in u we have user 1, and to get all the posts written by a user, we just need to write post is equal to u dot query, sorry, u dot post dot all, and if we print post we can see there is nothing. Why? Because we have not created any post. See, we have created a post, but the author is user 2, right? While creating the post we had the user 2 variable in u, user 2 object in u variable. So what if we print post, what if we do u is equal to user dot query dot get 2. So we have the second user, and now if we run post is equal to post, okay, sorry, u dot posts dot all, and now if we print post, obviously first post will be printed. Since the user 2 has created a post, so it has printed all the posts written by that user. Now let's do another thing. Let's see all, let us create another post. Post is equal to post, let us do this thing, u is equal to user, sorry, user dot query dot get 1. So you will be user 1, and let us create a new post with this user. Post title is equal to second post body is equal to, this is my second post, and the author will be obviously you. And we need to write db.session.add post db.session.commit. Now we can see the post is second post. Cool. Now let's do one thing. Post is equal to post dot query dot all. So the post variable will have all the posts written by any user, right? So let us run a for loop here. For p in posts, and here we can print p dot id, p dot author dot username, or let's say dot email, and p dot body. Cool. Okay, sorry, we did a mistake here. We need to do for p in posts, we need to indent here, and then we can write print p dot id, p dot author dot email, and p dot body. Now if we see, so the user not the user, the post id is 1, the user email is user 2, and this is the first post, and this is the second post by user 2, the user 1. Now let us get all the users in reverse alphabetical order. So how to do that? So we can simply run user.query.order by, what shall we order by? User dot username, not this, it will be user dot username dot desc dot all. So see, user 2 and user 1. To complete this video, let's erase the test users we have created and the test posts as well, so the database is clean for the next video. So how to do that? We can run the similarly to this db.session.add command, we have the db.session.delete command as well. So first of all, let's fetch all the users. User is equal to user dot query dot all. For u in users, make sure you indent it here, db.session.delete, and what should we delete? The user object. Cool, deleted. Similarly for post table, we can write post dot query dot all, indent, and then sorry, no indentation. For p in posts, indent now db dot session dot delete p, and deleted. Now we just need to, after we delete all this, we need to commit these changes. So for that, db.session.commit. And now if we see our database table, it should be clean, hopefully, and it is clean. The user post is clean, the post table is clean. Cool. So in this video, we have discussed about databases in Flask. In the next part, we shall combine all the things that we have learned previously, such as Flask web forms and the Flask databases, so that we can create a simple user login system